Before we get into the rest of the video, I want to let you guys know that Salty Ark is a group of Steam PC clusters for 6 and 3-man tribes. They're going to be wiping on the 17th of June at 1 p.m. EST. They're going to have Fjordur available from the start of the wipe. It's a very pleasant setting to play with 5x rates and PvP balance changes. There's different PvP balance changes for the 6 and 3-man clusters. Salty Ark has a unique set of map and cave changes and a very supportive active admin team. So if that sounds interesting to you guys, go check the link down in the description as well as the pinned comment and let them know that I sent you. Thank you once again to Salty Ark for sponsoring today's video. Alright boys, so I want to let you guys know that between now and the 19th, Ark is actually free on Steam. So if you guys have Steam and you don't have Ark yet, go ahead and pick it up. Even if you don't have Steam, go ahead and make an account and pick it up because you might get a computer in the future and it stays free in your account forever. I want to make sure that you guys know that right before we get into the rest of this, but let's go ahead and talk about the Ark 2 news that came out. As you guys can see on screen now, we got this little trailer, it's a cinematic trailer during the Xbox Bethesda Games Showcase. It was pretty interesting, but it was a bit of a disappointment for me and the people that were watching it. We expected to see some gameplay footage maybe, or get a little bit more information, and to be fair, we did get more information, but we didn't get it from this trailer. We actually got it from the Ark website and also the Ark 2 Steam page. So we're going to go ahead and hop over to the Steam page now and we'll go over some of this stuff. But I want to first touch base on a contentious point in the PvP community that I've seen now 2 different YouTubers make videos on, and that is the advanced melee combat system. I saw HOD and Apex both saying that this is going to be like the death of Ark PvP and that this is going to be really unhealthy for Ark PvP. They also both, I'm pretty sure, had a pretty big issue with the third person only gameplay. I personally don't like the third person only gameplay, but at the end of the day, there's tons of games that do third person really well. There's no reason to believe that Ark can't do third person really well. Most of the time that you're playing Ark, if you watch either, my videos or BAM's videos or HOD's videos or Apex's videos, the majority of the time they're playing the game, they're in third person. So I'm not sure exactly why that's such a big deal. And they're talking about adding advanced traversal mechanics like mantling, free climbing, parkour, sliding, and stuff like that, which will make the maps actually more walkable with your player, and you're not going to be just locked to dino for movement all the time, which is also really good. But the Souls-like melee combat, I think a lot of people are jumping the gun and they're immediately assuming that this somehow means, at least this is what I got the impression of from HOD's video, that this is going to not have gunplay in it and there's not going to be guns for you to use. I want to point out that all of this right here, this is in their own words, a sampling of new features that Ark 2 will contain upon its early access release. So they're touching base on things that are new and different. They're not touching base on all the features of the game. That's why this epic story thing, that's why we're thinking this is going to have a single player mode accompanying the multiplayer mode. The cross-platform modding, which is really cool, we'll talk about in a minute. The third-person only gameplay, because it's taking a change away from the third-person, first-person, switching back and forth. The Souls-like melee combat, which is something we don't have. The new map, component-based item crafting. These are all changes to the game that aren't present or are very barely touched on, like with world events. We have OSDs and veins on Extinction, but it's going to be a thing that's persistent throughout the entire game. These are new features, guys. This doesn't mean that we're not going to have good dino PvP. This doesn't mean that we're not going to have guns and that we're not going to, for all we know, the guns and stuff in the game, it could be one of those games where you're third person, but then when you scope in with a weapon that has a sight, it puts you into the first person perspective. So anyways, let's get into all of these points here. So let's start with the epic story thing. We're going to have Vin Diesel starring as the legendary hero Santiago, and you experience an epoch-spanning adventure as he seeks to protect his daughter, voiced by... I'm not going to try and pronounce that, but it's somebody from Moana. From the ghosts of an ancient past and visions of a new future. So this, to me, all of this is just the long way of saying we're going to have a single player experience. You're going to play as Santiago. You're going to, go through a story that's fully, narrated, has dialogue, has voice acting, has probably quests, and most importantly, teaches you the fundamentals of the game. And I know a lot of the PvP guys that watch my stuff are going to go, ew, gross, who cares? But think about it like this, guys. When Call of Duty first came out, it was primarily a story-based game, and I don't think Call of Duty as a franchise would be as popular with the multiplayer, and I don't think Warzone would exist if those single-player experiences didn't teach you the fundamentals for when the multiplayer came out. This is a very good thing, because all this means is that when Arc 2 comes out, there's going to be a much wider audience that goes to the multiplayer experience, because they're going to have some form of a tutorial. Revolutionary cross-platform modding. So basically, to put a long story short on this, they're going to have it to where all platforms are going to have access to mods. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have every mod that's on Steam on your console. It'll probably just be a curated amount, or there'll be limitations on what you can and can't do within those mods. Here's looking at you, weird people that mod games into having nude characters and other weird NSFW 18 plus stuff. But at the end of the day, we are going to see mods, and that's really cool, because that makes it to where people that are on consoles aren't getting left in the dark, and some of these YouTubers that make modded series can relate more to their audience, and they can, give suggestions. Could even give a rise to new channels that are just mod related channels for Arc 2, saying here's the new mods that came out this week and stuff like that. Really interesting, very cool. I'm not a huge fan of playing modded Arc, but for anybody who is, that's got to be very exciting. The third person only gameplay, I mean, it's cool that we're getting, new traversal mechanics. I do like that we're not going to just be limited to walk, run, crouch, jump, and then get on a dino or grapple around. But I do kind of, also wish that I could go first person. If we're going to pick one of them to be locked into the whole time, I would prefer it to be third person personally, just because I like to be able to get a better view of my surroundings. I don't want things sneaking up from the sides of me or behind me, because peripheral vision's really hard to do in a video game. But it is what it is. At least we know now ahead of time that it's going to be third person only, and we can prepare for that. The Souls-like melee combat, I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. If this is done right, this is the most exciting bit of information that they've given us, and it's something that I was actually hoping that they'd put into the game. When they said that they wanted to focus more on primitive gameplay, a lot of that primitive gameplay is just locked to bola the guy and then hit him with a torch and or shoot him with a bow. And that's basically it, or pike at his legs. It's very uninteractive. It's not very fun. So having something that's a bit more, in depth, that has counterplay, faster weapons that do less damage, stronger weapons that do more damage but are slower to swing, having dodges, having possibly parries and blocks that actually block correctly is going to be cool. And then one thing that a lot of PvP guys aren't considering is they're saying Souls-like melee combat. I'm just going to go ahead and just go on a limb here and say that if they're doing Souls-like, that means that we're going to have a dodge mechanic, and that also means that we're going to have some form of invincibility frames in that dodge mechanic. And when you have invincibility frames, those invincibility frames are not just locked to player interactions. That means if somebody goes to, attack you with a dinosaur, you could have, if the dinosaur's, attack animation is short enough, you could possibly dodge that attack. Somebody goes to pick you with a flyer, you might be able to use your invincibility frames to dodge that attack, which will add a bigger depth to foot versus dino PvP, or being able to disengage from a fight once your dinosaur dies, rather than you just being stuck there standing looking at the dino going, well, I guess this is my life now. The new alien environment, obviously we knew it was going to be on a new map, but it, it's cool to know that it's not Earth and it's actually some other planet and all that stuff, whatever. The component-based item crafting is another thing that I was like, it was on my bucket list. I wish I would have made a video, but I just never really got around to doing it, of like things that I wanted to see in Arc 2. I might still do that and then just put it on there anyway, but this is something that I've talked to tons of other creators about and other people in the PvP community. Component-based item crafting is just objectively better than the blueprint system that we have, and I've been saying since back when I played MTS with Get Jacked that I wish they would remove or overhaul the blueprint system entirely for something like this, because what this means to me is we're going to be going out and we're going to get components from the world. We might be able to craft some of these components, but I'm hoping that the majority of these, as it says, multiple options of resources found in unique regions of the world means that we have to go out and we have to acquire these components, similar to how you have to acquire components to build weapons in Rust. And the reason that's a good thing is because it keeps people leaving their base, going into the world, risking something to get something. Component-based item crafting will make it to where every item has like a unique set of characteristics. Maybe it'll, allow you to add different mods on that do different types of damage, or more damage or less damage, but like with different benefits. And it'll make it to where, for one, it's more interesting to loot people because you don't know what they have and what mods and stuff they'll have on their weapons and their items. But also it'll make it to where if you lose that item, that you went to one part of the map to get this thing and one part of the map to get that thing to put on it, then you have to now make those trips again. And it'll make it to where there's roaming groups similar to on Rust that go to each of these locations, and there'll be these large scale fights at these locations, which is really cool. I also think that that's going to probably mean that we're not going to see the return of crafting skill, or possibly, and I hope that this is the case, that they do away with the item quality tiers of like primitive up through ascendant, because then it'll make it to where things are a little bit more even playing field. The early game weapons and stuff shouldn't be able to just absolutely destroy you, but they should be able to kill you even if you are in late game gear. It shouldn't make you invincible to be in ascendant armor or whatever. So hopefully that's the case with that. That's one of the more exciting things for me. Dynamic world events, that's just expanding upon the idea of having these world events that'll happen. I do like the fact that it says that it's independent of player presence, and your choice in deciding whether or not to interact with the events will yield rewards or challenges. So that means if there is an alpha tribe on a server and a world event happens and they ignore it, it could negatively impact their progression. So it makes it to where they have to leave their base and they have to go take care of that. And then at the same time, while they're doing that, they might have people that are in a less advantageous position with their base and everything have an opportunity to attack them, maybe get a come up on some gear and stuff like that. Anything that gets people out of their bases is always going to be a good thing. The opposing PvE force, having the NPCs that are on dinos and stuff like that, that's kind of weird, but I mean, depending on how it's implemented, I'm okay with it. It's it is what it is. It'll probably just end up being like Conan Exiles NPCs, where they're just kind of there, and if you're even remotely competent at the game, they're not exactly a threat. But I mean, who knows? The Desmodus on the new map is able to pick you off your team, and if they have that transfer over to these NPCs on their flying dinos can pick you off your team, that could work out. I mean, that could be actually kind of engaging PvP experience against some of these NPCs. But I don't know, man. We'll see how that works. I'm not too concerned with this. It sounds like it'll be interesting, spice things up a little bit, but it doesn't sound like it'll be anything that'll greatly impact the day-to-day playing of the game. The advanced template building and sharing is interesting to me. It'll allow you to basically make a blueprint of what you're building and then either share that with other players. I'm assuming there'll be a place to upload it online. And then also, I think you can take it from server to server. I think the best example of this would be a game like Green Hell, where you can kind of, plan out how you're going to build something and then go and get the resources. I don't know how it's going to be implemented, but I do know that it's going to be really cool, especially if we can, as content creators, come up with our own builds, somehow get a file for that, and then share it with you guys in a video and say, here's the file to download, or where to get it. And then you guys can then go and use that in an open world like PvP environment. That'd be really cool. But anything that makes building easier, good to me, and anything like this that they're adding on means that the building system is going to be massively improved, in my opinion. So I mean, better building's always going to be good. Sensory based creature AI, so obviously we're gonna have better AI for our creatures, which is good. It's gonna make it to where you aren't getting aggroed from render distance by certain dinos. I'm looking at you, void worms. I'm looking at you, eels. I'm looking at you, jellyfish, and all these other ridiculous creatures that just seem to know the second that they pop into your render exactly where you are and then just start beelining straight for you. So that's really cool as well. The character progression and skill system, I don't know how I feel about this just yet. I'll have to get a little more information. It depends on how strong some of these skills are. If they're getting rid of like the engram system, and it's just going to make it to where by, you know, going through certain skill trees, you learn how to craft certain items. That's probably a cool thing. But the passive benefits and new active abilities and stuff like that, I'm not too sure how much I'm gonna like that. It just really depends on how impactful it is. But I mean, I'm gonna reserve judgment on that until I actually see it in implementation. And then obviously full realization of, you know, Unreal Engine 5 technology as just, you know, stuff about how the graphics are going to be super nice and all the, you know, new stuff in Unreal 5. We all know Unreal 5 is like an amazing engine, so that's whatever. As soon as they revealed that it was coming out, we knew it was going to be on UE5, and yeah, it's going to be really, you know, technologically great game and everything. One thing that I do want to talk about while we're talking about UE5 versus the insanely specific branch of UE4 that Arc is built on is a lot of the problems that people have with the game, a lot of the issues, a lot of the bugs that come up with Arc, the first game, are because of the engine. So that is something to consider. The engine is going to make a big difference, a lot more than what people realize. I think a lot of bugs that they want to get rid of, a lot of things that they want to change about Arc are just so fundamentally difficult to fix because the engine that it's built on makes it harder to fix than people realize. I also want to point out the fact that if it's on a main branch of UE5 and it's not too far removed from what other developing companies are using, then it'll make it easier for Arc to have a competent anti-cheat. So that's going to be really, really good as well. But that's all the information that we got. Again, you know, I don't think this is going to negatively impact PvP as much as everybody else is saying. I think it might change the way that we perceive PvP and the way that, you know, we approach PvP. Where we've kind of gotten to this stale meta of immobilize enemy, use a gun from a safe distance to kill him kind of thing. It's mostly just net tech rifle at the late stages of the game. It's bola pump or bola flame or bola combo or whatever in the early stages of the game when it comes to foot PvP. But that's not really that fun or engaging in the first place. So having something that's a bit more skill based and having something that, you know, includes melee combat isn't necessarily going to kill Arc PvP. Anyways, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Like I said at the beginning of the video, Arc is free right now on Steam through the 19th, and it will stay free in your library forever. So if you guys haven't picked it up, go pick it up and let all your friends know. We are currently in the highest concurrent player month for Arc that they've ever had. Over 200,000 people are playing the game. It's one of the most popular games on Steam right now. I think it's in like the top 7 or something. So if you guys haven't played it yet and you've been watching and you've been wanting to try it out, go ahead and pick it up. It's free. Anyways, thanks for watching, boys, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.